The hosts of Two Bored Apes are not registered investment advisors. The podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. Nothing said on it should be construed as investment advice.
Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff. Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff.
Welcome to episode 32 of Two Bored Apes. I'm your host, Jamie. I'm here with my friend and co-host, Roy. Roy, how are you?
I'm very full.
As per usual.
Yeah, but this was like, I just finished eating 30 seconds.
What'd you have? Let's start the podcast off right. What did you eat, Roy?
With a bang. Had Greek food. We had some calamari, some lamb, some halloumi, some chips.
Oh, I like a nice seared halloumi.
Yeah.
Now, was the halloumi was seared?
It was seared, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I'm into that. That's fun.
How are you, Jamie? Your hair looks
hold on,
shorter.
No. I did get a haircut, yes. The calamari, though, now, this is like a fried calamari, or was it just...
We actually had a couple of types of we had
squid?
fried calamari, and then we also had like baby octopus. Yeah. Should we talk about NFTs?
In a bit. I remember the first time you ever visited, we went to Haruki East, and you ordered calamari. Do you remember that, Roy?
I remember going to that place. I do not remember ordering calamari.
Well, that's a little factoid for you. I guess we can talk about NFTs if you want to.
I think we should. That's what the people are here for, right?
I'm gonna sip a little water.
Uh-huh.
All right, this is a Twitter Q&A episode, and we have a variety of questions from people on Twitter that we will answer, and we're just going to jump right into it. First question comes from Chesco. Chesco says, "What are the pros and cons of a CCO project?" Maybe you can tell people what CCO is, and then we'll wax poetic about pros and
CCO,
cons.
although more people have been saying CC0, which I guess is more technically accurate, is a type of... Basically, it means that a piece of intellectual property or anything doesn't have copyright associated with it. Nobody owns the copyrights to a thing. It's basically in the public domain. Anyone can do whatever they want, basically.
Stands for Creative Commons.
Yeah. A good example is like the works of Shakespeare. Anyone can do whatever they want in terms of releasing. If you want to go do a play of Romeo and Juliet, you don't need to get the permission from Shakespeare's estate or from Disney or from some company. But if you want to go and create a new Star Wars movie, you can't really do that without getting there. There's
a little bit of a difference, though. Let me just interrupt slightly, because those things are sort of what's called in the public domain, where at some point, maybe Shakespeare might be a bad example where it's so old that it was never really copyrighted. But a lot of stuff, there's like a copyright for it, a trademark. I shouldn't slam the table, probably. And somebody owns the rights to it, but after like 75 years or whatever, then it goes into the public domain, and then anybody can do it. Robin Hood's another example of just one of these old stories that anybody can adapt. But now in NFTs, we're seeing specific examples where people are creating the project and immediately releasing the rights of it to everybody under this Creative Commons license. So there's like a difference in the intention where right from the get-go, these projects are trying to put it out there, as opposed to some of these other IPs that just have transitioned into being in the public domain. Yeah.
So why would a project do this, for instance?
Well, I think one of the, it's so new that a lot of it is theoretical, but I think what a lot of people that are proponents of the idea are thinking that, if the intellectual property is at all interesting or compelling, other people will want to build on top of that. And that will just basically grow the public's affinity for that project in general. And, sort of the old world thinking is that the brand would get diluted or something like that by having other people work on it. But, the Web3 narrative is sort of that it can get built up by just having more people doing stuff with nouns and cryptodes, just as two examples that are trying to do that.
Yeah. And I often hear people say, like, why would a project do that? What isn't a lot of the value in holding sort of the copyright and the intellectual property for these projects? And one response to that is sort of what you said. Maybe by allowing anyone to create it will increase the public's affinity and the brand value and stuff, and like the original assets will go up in value. But also, some people aren't thinking about how can they maximize the profit of this thing. It's just like,
Yeah.
this is a cool thing. We want to see it out there in the world and more people building on it. So let's just go CC0.
Yeah. On that note, I think one specific example that's sort of analogous that I've returned to, because sometimes people will be like, well, yeah, if you don't own it, how is it in any way valuable? And for instance, if you have one of the copies of the first appearance of any famous comic book character, Superman being in Action Comics 34, maybe was the issue, Spider-Man being in Amazing Fantasy 16, you don't own the rights to the character of Spider-Man just by owning that. But it's the inception of a very popular character, intellectual property, whatever you want to call it. And this is the sort of artifact that goes all the way back to the origination of it. And by being scarce, because there's not that many of them because they're old, and being verifiable and all that stuff that NFTs already have built into it, it's just a valuable thing for collectors to own. And so in that sense, it makes plenty of sense to me that a CCO NFT could be very valuable despite conferring no ownership rights over the intellectual property if that intellectual property becomes popular. Just one more level to it, though, is that, with these comic book examples, you're owning one of, 10,000 of the first copies of Spider-Man. Whereas with the NFTs, you would be owning Spider-Man, this Cryptode, for instance. If it somehow became a very popular figure in popular culture, you're not just owning the first story of it, you're owning it. And again, you don't have to own the intellectual property by owning the NFTs for that to be a valuable collector's item to people who care about the character.
Yeah. No, that's a great analogy. Some of the cons I think that I've heard and can agree with are if sort of say there's a very specific vision for the brand that maybe the creators have and they have sort of the ability to execute on that, it can be sort of detrimental to have people out there building conflicting intellectual property and stories. Like, for example, Cool Cats, they're very family friendly. They're going for kid friendly. Maybe they do a kids TV show. It would be damaging if there's someone out there doing like some murder horror, thing with Cool Cats as the intellect. It would potentially be detrimental to like the brand, and it would be confusing for like fans and for people going, well, what is Cool Cats? There's this horror Cool Cats show, and there's this. But
that's valid. That's a con to applying CCO to some project that doesn't even that's not going to do it. What about the concept of the negative or the cons of using CCO on a project that actually is CCO and sort of wants to let other people do it? You know what I mean? To me, you can have a similar thing to where you're talking about like murder Cool Cats or whatever.
Right.
But for instance, any of these CCO projects, people could just use it to spew all sorts of terrible hate or whatever and go, we love Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and have it coming out of a Cryptode's mouth or something. People might think that's damaging. That in that sense, just anyone being able to do something and you not having a legal recourse to stop them from using your imagery in it can have some sort of a negative effect.
Yeah, definitely. That's another danger. And it's, I mean, that's just one thing that can happen by going CC0. You basically relinquish all legal control and rights to stop that from happening.
Right. I think also sort of one thing that could be bad about it is, for instance, you're Dom Hoff, right? And you've got these blit maps and you make them CCO. If you want to make official blit map merchandise, for instance, it's easier to make a knockoff I mean, again, this kind of just goes back to the legal thing, but the idea of being able to charge a premium for like a real Prada bag versus a knockoff Prada bag makes more sense to me than to be able to charge a premium if you're Dom Hoff trying to sell Blipmap merch versus other Blipmap that has an equal legal footing to be putting out Blipmap merch. It's harder to actually say that mine is better or more official, even if it is technically more official. It's like the sort of the point of what you're doing is that we're all officially able to use this IP. So why do I need yours? You can kind of get railroaded if you still, like if you're doing CCO and trying to just totally step back and go, it's in everybody else's hands, fine. But if you still are trying to like guide it a little bit, you're sort of handcuffing yourself a little bit maybe when you do CC0, not CCO.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's like you said at the beginning, it's something that's quite new and we haven't really seen it play out. And it's probably going to take many, many, many years before we can look back and say, oh, it was probably a good decision for this project to do it. It may have been a bad decision for this project to do it, and so on and so forth.
As far as NFTs are concerned, I feel like we haven't really seen the just the results basically of CC0 or non-CC0 intellectual property. Like it's just all so new that almost every implementation of this intellectual property is just like more NFTs or like just there's only been a little bit built on top with this. There's some merch obviously for various projects, but it's still like we don't have any Netflix shows or anything like that from NFT based intellectual property. So we really can't say what are the in practice pros and cons. We can only kind of wax poetic about theoretically what does this enable and what does it hinder, and kind of assume how that may or may not play out in the future.
Yeah. It's really fascinating thing to discuss and think about. I had a chat for my YouTube video series interviews with John Rogers. Yeah, that's a great way of deciding it. Describing it.
This is good too. This is good stuff.
This is some good podcasting and all that. But yeah, he was head of franchise development at Disney, and he worked on Star Wars, and he's really he knows a lot about this. And something that he mentioned is how he is a bit surprised that a lot of projects who are giving sort of like full commercial rights, so Bored Apes, for example, to holders, are making it absolutely full and not like some sort of somewhat restricted license. And sort of he was saying that even
Can you expand on what you mean by restricted, or if you didn't because like sort of instance, the Clone X ones where it was like up to 100,000. I think Punk's had that as well. Does he mean that?
Yeah. No, not in the financial sense, but in terms of what you can actually do with it. Like he says, a lot of traditional companies will be like, you can do whatever you want to whatever money, but you can't create anything that's like drug paraphernalia, underwear. And so the example he gave is like, it's great to give people full rights, but what happens when someone goes out and creates a Bored Ape Yacht Club shotgun and then goes and kills people?
Right.
Like that's quite damaging potentially to the entire brand. Maybe it would have made sense to have some sort of restricted license.
Yeah.
Like that.
Which kind of just goes back to what we're talking about in terms of just bad actors doing stuff with it that reflects poorly and lowers the brand affinity.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of answered this pretty good, right?
I think so.
All
right. Next up, anticlux.world. Why are 10K PFP projects the most popular NFT format so far? And what's the meaning behind it?
Good question. Do you have an answer?
I think for the first part of it, like why 10K, it's sort of just like CryptoPunk started with a 10K collection, and then it just seemed like that was just what projects did, and it's just become like the status quo. I think it's a nice round number, and for the market size and stuff, it's just fit. So I think
it lets you get a lot of variety, but still have some harmoniousness. I think that kind of was just, Punk started, and unfortunately, I don't know much about whatever curio cards and all that other old
Mm.
stuff, really. But then, of course, Apes did it, and then we just have a lot of people pseudo copycatting Apes from then
Yeah,
on.
pretty
You know,
much.
interestingly, Gutter Cat Gang, who came
Mm.
very shortly after Apes, and to me read very much like they were just copying the idea, did a much
Yeah.
smaller size. But for the most part, yeah, 10K is very popular. But in terms of going beyond the number, why is the profile picture project thing so popular and resonant, do you think?
I think it like combines it combines a few things, like the collectible nature. So when you have 10K and you mint and it's generative, it's like there's this whole gambling rarity, like opening packs element where it's like, oh, can you get a
Yeah.
rare one? People enjoy that. It combines the art, like a lot of them have really cool art and different art, and people can appreciate that. But probably more importantly than all of that is it's just really easy to identify with these PFPs. And like people have been using avatars for decades, ever since the internet's been around. You'd have a forum, you'd choose an avatar. You'd when we played online poker, you'd have an avatar.
Yep.
In games, you'd have avatars. So it's just a concept that people can understand and be like, oh, now I identify and relate. This is now my digital identity. This is my digital. Yeah. And that to me, yeah.
And so much of the NFT community is on Twitter and is on Discord, where you have profile picture projects, and then it's just inherently an advertisement essentially for that NFT specifically and that NFT project more broadly. So, as far as like metaverse land or just straight out art projects, whatever other NFT categories you want to discuss, the ability for them to constantly be being advertised without effort, and for you to be able to identify them with various groups of people, and even once you get to the deeper level of the individual that has it, intertwining that with your own actual personality and identifying with it. Like, I have some great Artblocks art that I love, and love more than any of my profile picture projects, NFTs, but there's 0% where I'm confusing myself with that. Whereas very much there is a sense that I am ape number 9838,
Right.
which is just, that's a powerful, weird new thing that I think, as much as I have found the space to be bubbly in its valuation of all of these projects, or I shouldn't say all, but a lot of these projects, for a long time, and have tended to be proven wrong sort of by the market in the short term, because they mostly have kept going up. It's a super powerful thing that is just like, belonging is a big thing in humanity. Obviously, we're social creatures, and there's been all sorts of different ways that we've done that before, right? But the way that this directly adds finances into it is a very interesting thing. And the way that like the hierarchical structure of, say, I don't know if you know who the Freemasons are or whatever, but like just any sort of large social club, there's some sort of tiered nature to a lot of those, but that has to do with politics and who you know and who your father was and all that stuff. There's an interesting sort of initially democratizing thing where it's just, I could have minted the gold ape, you could have minted the gold ape, Elon Musk could have minted a crazy eyes with brown fur or whatever. But then it allows you to pick what you like in the secondary market, and you can identify more strongly with that. It's just it's an interesting way to get human coordination going together, that I think is just like the potential is still so huge and untapped as far as I'm concerned. And I think a lot of people that are maybe skeptical or like purely in it for the money are kind of regularly looking for what's going to be the new thing, and thinking that profile picture projects are very much of the time. I think they just are going to endure and be massive continuously.
Yeah, I don't see a point in time when they go away. It's just like as more people enter the space, they're going to want to have a lot of them are going to want to have a PFP, a profile picture, an identity, maybe several, and then it's a
That's a
question of
I was going to say
yeah,
that's just another thing. The idea of having multiple is
yeah,
something that some people I talk to buy into it, and I feel like the way I am and foresee people in general being is that you only really need a second one if you happen to sell your top one. But I guess definitely some people are going to want to have alt accounts and stuff like that,
mm,
or just in various different social circles, digital, largely digital
yeah,
social circles, have different ones. But to me, that's still strange. But it's we're like a
yeah,
year into this shit. Certainly in 4 years, I could be obviously proven wrong and think that this version of me is a moron, forever thinking that I wouldn't simultaneously be four of them or whatever.
right, yeah, yeah,
Continue.
exactly.
Sorry to interrupt.
I was saying, yeah, it's who's going to know? Like, I mean, yes, we can agree that yeah, almost anyone who joins the space is likely going to want some sort of avatar PFP, but is it going to be the existing collections or new stuff that comes out in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? And that's really, really hard to predict. Um, to go back to like what you were saying as well before about like how it's just not the same with Artblocks because we don't identify it with it. It's like this is two Bored Apes, not two fragments of an infinite field.
Yeah.
This is not two plots of sandbox land. This is not two this, that, or the other. It's
Right.
something just very personable about PFPs.
And even in
Yeah.
the future, theoretically, if we were somehow doing this show within a sandbox plot, um, it, that would just still be the setting and
Mm,
us. And it's
yeah.
hard, humans have some level of selfishness inherent to them, right? How am I ever going to think an NFT that is mine is more valuable than the NFT that is me? You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like my art is something that reflects on me. And then I
yeah.
have this other NFT that
me,
is me.
me. Yeah.
It just that's more powerful in a way
Yeah.
that is, I think, hard to overstate.
Yeah. It's all, yeah. I think we answered that.
Okay,
It's very
question
cool.
3. Lucas says, "What's the advantage of holding your crypto in a wallet, e.g., MetaMask, versus on an exchange?" Okay, let's dive into this one. Um, the wall, I'm sorry, the crypto is always it's on the blockchain, right? It's never on Coinbase, it's never on MetaMask, right? These are the
Mhm.
things you're using to interact with it. Just I want to clear that up. But this goes back to the old Bitcoin adage, right? Not your keys, not your coins. And so
Mhm.
ultimately, the advantage of it is that the security of it is up to you, and the usage of it, the transferring of it from one place to another, all that good stuff is up to you. When your keys are held in a wallet that you don't control, for instance, on a centralized exchange, you are now beholden to um, just any bad, powerful people within the company that can get a hold of it, or any um, phishing scam sent to a random employee in there can now cost you your coins, and that's getting uh, like within the legal sphere or whatever. Then if you want to step back, you also have the thing where now we have a lot of jurisdictions and governmental agencies that are going, we're going to confiscate this. And you know you can be for or against laws, all that, whatever. I don't want to get into that. But ultimately, when you have them in those places, they are subject to those laws,
Mm.
and the governments can yank it from you. Whereas, again, if you are the only one that is actually uh, able to use your coins because you're having it on MetaMask, so to speak, in a wallet that only you control, ultimately, people need to torture you for your seed phrase to get it from you. Um, Now, definitely, there is a sense that certain people who are just not uh, technologically savvy enough, the risk is probably greater that you're going to lose access to your stuff if you're
Mm.
doing self custody versus having it on a centralized exchange. So it's not only better to do self custody. But that's sort of the benefit, is that you don't have to worry about somebody else fucking up in any way, legally or non-legally,
Yeah.
and having your stuff get lost.
Yeah. There's been sort of like a bunch of instances over the years where centralized exchanges get hacked, or they themselves rug pull and run away with people's monies because they have access. They have custody of the funds. And so if something goes wrong, you have very little recourse. And that's like, yeah. And there's like minor little things, or like somewhat minor, in the form that these centralized exchanges have to be, basically they have to adhere to certain regulations. And again, for better or worse, you can agree or disagree. But I know so many people who say, I'm trying to buy something, but my ETH is in Coinbase and they won't let me withdraw it for 7 days, or I can only withdraw
so
$2,000 worth or something. Whereas if it's in your MetaMask, if it's in a hard, like wherever it is, your own self custody wallet, you can do whatever you want with it at any single time. And then, yeah, the risk and the downside, as you mentioned, is if you lose access to your personal wallet, your MetaMask, your seed phrase, like let's say you your house burns down, you didn't have a copy saved somewhere else, you have no way of accessing it. It's gone. It's just absolutely gone. With centralized exchanges, there's usually some way of verifying identity. I forgot my password. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And then you can get back in. So it's definitely a trade-off. Yeah, it's just a trade-off. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to what you were saying about centralized exchanges being hacked. That's just another thing where ultimately they're a much bigger target. So if you have some funds that are in Coinbase and that's in a wallet that controls $90 million worth or whatever, a hacker can use a much larger amount of effort, time, and resources to try and get access to that than they ever would trying to individually target your $7,000 that you have. That's just a minuscule part of that bigger Coinbase wallet. So, again, it's a lot about pros and cons in terms of security.
Yeah. We can go. Yeah, we don't need to get into any more detail there. I think we've sort of covered that.
Okay.
All right. Next question. Storm, why do you think the NFT space is in a slump at the moment? The rugs, the loss of confidence in project delivery? Question mark.
Is it in a slump? I'm not sure if I
think it is. I think January was fairly bullish, and I would say the first half of January was very bullish. But I would say last month or so, most of February was like spotty. Overall, kind of bearish. Like
I feel like maybe volumes are still high, but maybe floor prices are coming back. I mean, again, this is a thing that we have to talk about, unfortunately, every 5 episodes at least or whatever. But ETH prices are going up right now, and there's always some question of how much of an inverse correlation there is between ETH prices in US dollars and then NFT prices in ETH. Which can definitely be a factor. But yeah, January was just, there was a level of ecstatic bullishness that, those can last a long time. It could have lasted all the way until now, but eventually sentiment turns because you just can't stay that positive forever. And you're going to have some sort of inevitable pullbacks. I do think there's a growing sense that, within the community of NFTs, that there are bad actors who are just continuing to crank out projects that are able to take a ton of money out of the economy, and they aren't particularly interested in actually building up, an interesting NFT project. They just want to mint stuff and get money and then just fuck off. And the scale at which it's happening and the scale at which we as a NFT community are becoming aware of it, I think is growing, and that is making people sort of bearish in the short term, but also bearish on like as we try to get more people in, how are they going to, having just come in and only have, let's say, 45 minutes a day to research NFTs, which is like a lot, super lot for a random person just coming into it. to differentiate between these things and not just get rug pulled left and right or whatever. It's hard to feel like we're going to be able to onboard people and have them just be able to differentiate between good and bad when the bad is getting so much more numerous as a percentage and so much more sophisticated.
Yeah. No, I pretty much agree with all of that. Yeah, I mean, Pixelmon is probably like the biggest example.
That's the current one for sure.
Yeah, it basically they raised I think almost $70 million, and it was primarily just one I think 19-year-old kid who had a website and some very basic Unity models.
Which, by the way, he wasn't saying were Unity models, right? It was, they were acting like we've created this art, whereas they were just buying packs of voxel art on Unity.
It was all very shady, or
maybe it wasn't even voxel art. It was regular 3D art, and then they put it through a voxel filter. I think I saw.
Yeah,
regardless,
something very, very not worth $70 million. Probably not worth $70,000.
They had a real sleek video at the very beginning, right, where they were kind of teasing what the game would look like, and I think that got people excited. And then it turned out that was just sort of a movie clip that they had put together and had no bearing on their actual progress in creating this game that people were looking forward to. It was basically, it was for lack of a more delicate term, a knockoff of Pokemon, right? It was going to be like a three-dimensional pixelated or voxel, as we know a 3D pixel is called, version of the concept of Pokemon, right?
Yeah. And people got very excited by it. There's like, ooh, I like Pokemon. I like the idea of a game. And
I like Pokemon.
Yeah, I like Pokemon. I haven't played in a couple of years, but that was a fun year when we were playing Pokemon Go all the time. Yeah.
I've been thinking about getting some of the actual newer Pokemon games. Alicia and Nick both love them and play them a lot. We might be getting off topic of NFTs by me talking about that, but they're good games.
They are. They're really good games.
Which one was your first one? I played Pokemon Blue way back in the day. I don't know if
it was Blue or Red was one of the first. I don't remember which one.
Good stuff.
That was so much fun.
It was really fun.
Yeah. All right.
Back to the Twitter Q&A.
Why do you think the NFT? Yeah, I mean,
here we go. Loss of confidence in project delivery. We didn't touch on that. We did touch on like the rugs and stuff, but I think specifically with that one, it seems like Cool Cats is probably the best example of it, right? That was a project where basically I think the entire community really believed in that team. It was like a very sort of clear number 2/3 behind, Apes or Punks and Apes. And they hadn't really stumbled at all. And now as they've released the cool pets and the game that's sort of supposed to go along with it, they've hit a sort of major stumbling block. And so people's, I guess, ability to assume that these roadmaps are all going to go smoothly is getting proven wrong here. Got a little Toby hair here I'm trying to get. And so people are just kind of losing a touch of that bullishness. Maybe another example could possibly be Punk's comic. I don't know. I'm so not in the Pixel Vault community, but the time between issue 1 and issue 2 of that was enormous and not at all what it's like when you're waiting for comic books in general, because normally in the comic book industry, a comic book series, you have one issue every single month, and then maybe, every 18 months or whatever, there'll be a little hiatus for the artist to catch up, something like that. But the speed with which they were delivering was a little bit poor in some respects. They were making a lot of promises, so it's hard to deliver on all of them. But I
think that it is the prime example of a loss of confidence in a project's ability to deliver, and then you combine that with the rug pulls, with the low effort projects that are just capturing so much liquidity and money and time and attention, and it's not surprising that the market is in a little bit of a slump. The volumes are lower than they were last month and seem to be dropping a little bit and floor prices. It hasn't like crashed. We're not like in some, at least for the blue chips. I mean, they're down a bit, 30, 40%. Like Bored Apes were like 120, 130 ETH, and now they're down to like
119, I think is the highest I remember.
Now they're like 80, 85. So yeah, it's somewhat significant.
To expand on that just a little bit, again, when you're thinking of a project that's as revered and successful as Cool Cats not being able to deliver, when you're looking at the projects that are tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 below that nobody believes in the team as much as they believe in the Cool Cats team, or very few people do. I think when you see stumbling there, you go, how are these people actually going to deliver on all these promises?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm heading on to the next question.
Yep.
I can't see. Okay, good. The next question is from Colin Lieb. Colin says, have profile picture projects peaked? What's the next large scale NFT trend?
We've sort of already touched on this a little bit. I don't think they've peaked. I think that they're just always going to be. Yeah, it's something that. I mean, even, we go back almost a year, and like people were saying after there were 10 projects after the Bored Apes. All right, that's it. They've peaked. What's the next?
I remember thinking that at Bulls on the Block, and that was like late June.
Yeah, so crazy. I always remember my famous Cool Cats team DMs me, and I'm like, I don't know. I think the market's a bit saturated now.
It's like the third cat project, guys.
Yeah. We got Garter Cats, Moon Cats, and now another cat. No, we can't support that many projects.
The OG.
Crypto Kitties. Yeah.
I do. Yeah, like we touched on earlier, I kind of think it might just always be the biggest category of NFTs, but I could see as a percentage it becoming less, but I don't know what it's going to be replaced with, because of all the other stuff that might replace it. I feel like specifically Metaverse Land is one where I think prices have gotten out of hand in general for how usable and numerous they are. So I don't necessarily foresee them gaining much ground on profile picture projects. I guess I could see art, just pure art NFTs growing as a percentage of the overall NFT marketplace a little bit. But I think that's always going to be a minority in the sense that, maybe it'll grow from 4 to 9 now or whatever like that, in a way that's not really threatening to profile picture projects' dominance. But I still have a sense that more other stuff could gain on them. But I think maybe it'll be stuff that I can't even really foresee. I mean, again, gaming is obviously another big sector. And I think as the games start to actually come out, perhaps they'll really take off and take some of the shine off of profile pictures.
Yeah, I think gaming assets will really eventually be, I don't know if as big as PFPs, maybe bigger, but certainly as a percentage, they'll go up. And I think wearables and like metaverse fashion and stuff, because then it's like currently it's a tiny fraction of the market because you can't really use your wearables. It's like, all right, I got a PFP, that's my identity. But when we're running around in Sandbox, for instance, and then all of a sudden you have a PFP, but now you can just like put on a new skin, dress it up, have a certain gun, a weapon, a backpack, all that kind of stuff.
One of those Bored Ape Yacht Club shotguns you were talking about.
Yeah. Exactly. When that happens, I think they will capture more and more of the market as well.
Yeah, I mean, wearables, that's a good example of one where the current percentage has got to be under 1%. So
yeah,
if it really catches on to any degree, that'll have a lot of room to grow for sure.
Yeah.
Whereas, and again, back to the profile pictures, we've talked about this before, and I think this is something that I probably talk about quite a bit more than you, but it just seems like the amount of them right now is so high relative to the amount of people that buy into the concept of identifying yourself with one of them. So it seems like, we can have another 200,000 people onboarded to NFTs, which I believe will take some amount of time that's, not super short. We can have them onboarded, and all the people existing already have plenty of profile picture projects to just dump on them.
Yeah.
And we're still having new projects come out every single day, adding on to that supply.
Yeah.
So it's
so crazy. But like, again, we thought this in June last year.
Yeah.
And then it kept going. And then it crashed in like September, October. And we were like, okay, we knew it was coming. It was going to crash. And then January came around and things went even crazier and hit newer highs. And then now we're coming down.
The speed with which NFTs are mainstreaming too, I think, is faster than I anticipated. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but the amount that the public at large has become aware of them, that happened faster. And the amount and speed with which they're becoming not only aware, but not inherently hating them or being very skeptical of them is also happening faster than I imagined by, I think, a lot.
Yeah.
Again, we've talked about how time is weird as a thing we like to say, but we've only been here for a year. It's
so crazy.
And if you think about the difference in how much the general public knows about them and how dismissive they used to be of them, and all of that has happened in a lot less than a year, I don't know. To me, it feels like that is happening faster than I expected.
Yeah, same. It's good to see. I think it comes down to, again, just like the relatability, or like the different areas of life that people can find that interest them in NFTs. Again, gaming and gamers can find something like artists and creators, musicians, photographers. So many different people find something that they can enjoy in the NFT space, where prior to this with crypto, it was basically just finance and tech people.
Right.
Yeah,
and
apparently people...
Sorry, I was just going to say, you still with them have that lure that you could make money on it, which that was sort of the only thing maybe with crypto coins, because it was like, I don't know how many of the people that were just jumping onto the crypto bandwagon were like really caring about the tokenomics or whatever solution this particular ERC20 purported to be solving. Whereas, the actual use cases for a lot of these NFTs are more attractive to people, but you still have that possibility of making a little money on them.
Yeah. Apparently, a lot of people used to say they thought DeFi was going to be what made crypto go mainstream, and it just clearly never happened. I mean, even now, so many people who are into NFTs barely know what DeFi is or means.
Us, for instance, it's in our theme song, and we never freaking talk about it.
Yeah.
It is funny because at the time you might have thought, well, like, why not DeFi, right? That's what crypto is, right? We're decentralizing money, and now what do you layer on top of money? A whole financial system, right? And we'll decentralize that. But this whole fun cultural thing of NFTs, it just wasn't really a thing, except for a very small, I guess all the people that are OG in NFTs enough to actually have been around in 2017 aren't listening to us. So I don't need to worry about telling them. I'm aware that a couple of you guys existed or whatever, but it was like tiny.
Yeah.
And it's certainly something that I think has started to and will continue to mainstream people into crypto so much more effectively.
Yeah. And it's just not slowing down, which is crazy and great.
I was just listening to us the other day, and somebody had asked me about me acquiring that Damien Hirst currency, and I had talked about how on Twitter I talked to multiple people after I tweeted that I got it, that had gotten into NFTs accidentally because they were just traditional art fans, and they heard about this Damien Hirst and they got it, and they were totally sure that they were gonna be converting it into the physical,
right?
Of course I want a physical Damien Hirst. I don't want this nonsense NFT thing, and have just totally bought in to what NFTs can be, are, are going to be, all that stuff. And that's the main thing. Now you say the sort of a similar thing about how gamers can find it. I don't personally see that gamers have gotten into NFTs because of gaming NFTs. Certainly it's possible it's happened, and I think more so it will happen. But definitely in the long run, there's just so many use cases that will be able to onboard so many different people to NFTs for totally different reasons. And then it'll just expose them to the wider concept of NFTs and how they can do these sort of interesting different things that they didn't think maybe that they were interested in or know about. Do you actually have maybe examples of people you've talked to that have gotten into NFTs purely through gaming? Or
no, actually, I think it's more of a it will happen. Like I believe that it will. It's sort of there's definitely a lot of opposition from the gaming community and from gamers about NFTs, and it's not. It's very reasonable for them to have that sort of skepticism because of how sort of the direction the gaming industry has been moving over the last 10, 15 years. It used to be, all right, you pay $50, you get a full game. It's finished. It's great. You can play it for 100 hours. Wonderful. And then you can sell the game to a friend or whatever, even lend it to a friend. Now it's like, all right, you pay $80 pre-sale. Like, we'll ship a game that barely works. It's full of bugs. And then every month you're going to have to pay an $8 subscription fee. And then there's DLC. And then there's in-game items, which you can buy and you don't own. And there's loot boxes. And the gaming industry has just been, let alone like casual gaming with microtransactions. And like the gaming industry has just been fleecing consumers basically, and making the gaming experience worse. And so from our perspective, we can see how NFTs can make that better. But if someone doesn't really understand NFTs, they think, oh, this is just another way the gaming industry is going to take our money.
Yeah. I think also the people that are sort of that thinking, the only times they hear about NFTs is they're hearing about CryptoPunks or Bored Apes or maybe a Fidenza or something. And they're hearing these enormous numbers and they're going like, we as NFT proponents are going, well, wouldn't you like to own your in-game assets rather than just sort of rent them from the company? And now they hear these prices and they're going like, I don't want to pay $30 to rent it from them, but I definitely don't want to pay $220,000 to own it from them. And thinking they're just going to be totally priced out of this. And like, pay to win is sort of an expression that you hear a lot in gaming nowadays because of the way they kind of go, you can grind for 80 hours or give us $4. I think when they think about that concept and then they hear these NFT prices, it only seems like it's going to make things way worse for them. Rather than potentially quite a bit better. Like, us NFT proponents are sort of hopeful that it will.
Yeah. And they're probably also hearing a lot of just the general negative bad press about how NFTs are bad for the environment, about how NFTs, like people are getting scammed left, right, and center. And there's all this kind of stuff that makes mainstream news way more than like the dozens or hundreds of projects that have been building real cool, interesting games.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question. Oh, is this you?
I think it's me.
Okay, go ahead.
Staviana says, what is one thing you would suggest a community do to not stall in this weird market? Also, what was your best flip? The two very different questions.
Okay. That is...
what is one thing a community could do to not stall in this weird market? I mean, it's an interesting question. I think it depends on what the community is trying to do is probably the first thing to think about. And then just doing that. I mean, it's sort
what
of
a
like,
terrible answer.
I know. Like, but let's say...
There is a sense that like
staying
true. If you actually have a community, it doesn't stall. That's not what a community does. But when you have something where you're kind of just focused on floor prices going up and you have a fictitious community around trying to have that happen, then once the floor stalls, then the community stalls. I think there's something to that where like you have to differentiate between a real community and a fictitious community. And this question is almost inherently asking about propping up a fictitious community, because if you have a real community, why is it going to stall because market prices are coming down a little bit? That's not a community, maybe.
Yeah. I think it comes down to sort of what would you suggest the community do? I think do things that bolster the community building events and stuff that makes people want to be part of the community for, again, more than anything to do with price or money. And I get people asking me this fairly frequently. Like, how do you build a good community? I'm launching an NFT project. What should we do to build a good community? And to me, it comes down to like, look at what people did to build communities before NFTs, without NFTs, because humans have been building communities for thousands and thousands of years. And there's a lot to be learned there. And,
agriculture.
Sure. I don't think we're going to have agriculture in Discord.
Well, that was
yet.
certainly one of the first things that brought people together, right?
All right, let's go a little more 21st century and look at like
steam engine. What was the thing that Henry Ford supposedly did?
The production
assembly line.
Yeah. The printing press. No, but like a book club.
Get more water.
Night.
Keep talking.
Yeah. Do things that make people want to come to your Discord and have fun. Poker nights, trivia nights, community building events. Have Twitter spaces and have little like art contests and meme contests and conversations that are insightful and interesting, and that get people like want to spend time in your Discord, in the community, interacting with other community members, interacting with the team, because I think that's where a real community gets built. And it takes time, but then as people continue to come back and take part in these events, they meet other people, and hopefully that they like the other people, and they make these relationships, and they're like that's really the heart and soul of a community. It comes down to like getting people wanting to spend time there. And how do you do that? You come up with events, you try and steer the conversation in ways that are deeper and more insightful and meaningful than floor price, and even than just like what the project is and what they're building. Like there's so much more to a community than just what the team and the project founders set. So much of it comes from within the community themselves. Usually they're drawn to the project because of the team and the founders and the vision and whatever, whether it's the art that appreciates with them, or the game that they're potentially building, or the comic that they're releasing. But then now you have a group of people who are somewhat connected via a common interest. Give them something to do together, and then they'll have fun. And then, yeah.
I mean, ultimately, you want to provide a experience, right? So it can be educational, it can be entertainment, it can be something in between, but you have to give people a reason to, like, what is the point of this community? You know what I mean? And what is the benefit of being a part of this community? And it kind of goes from there. And that's going to be very individual, I would say, based on the project, because if you're talking about the Zed Run community, what they're going to do to keep that community together is quite different from what the Artblocks community is going to do to keep that community together. And you have to, be cognizant of what type of community you have and go from there.
All right, second part of the question. What was your best flip? Is that kombucha? I'm so jealous. I would
Heart cherry. It's very good.
I don't like cherry flavor things, so I'm less jealous now. Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't taste like an artificial cherry taste. Are we sponsored by Kavita? We're not. But just shoving it in like that.
What was your best flip, Jamie?
I sold a summer fragment of the Infinite Field for 32F that I had minted for like 2 or 3F. I think that would have to be it. Let me pull up my activity and get you a more exact. But that would definitely be it.
That's a hell of a flip. I don't think I've sold an NFT for that much.
You're not much of a seller. Like, I mean, you get a lot of projects where you have a bunch of them and then you kind of slowly sell off bits and pieces. But in terms of big sales, you haven't really done one of those.
The largest that I can think of was a Blocks of Art project on Artblocks, minted for like, I don't know, 0.1 or 0.15. And then I sold it for about 14 ETH, which is that 1,000x? That's probably 1,000x.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And then I had a really crazy night during the period when I was like a crazy aggressive flipper. I minted these things. I think they're called dope Shibas. And I minted them for 0.02 or something. And I listed one of them for 5 ETH. And
I remember that.
Yeah. I was just like, yeah.
I'm looking at my my tax spreadsheet. So the fragment that I'm talking about, I minted it for 2.553 ETH. So I guess it was 2 plus a lot of gas. And I sold it for 28.8 ETH. I mean, I guess it was 32, but after royalties and OpenSea fees, it was 28.8. So that was like 26 ETH, and it was probably only 3 weeks or something, maybe not even, right? I think it was probably
it was very short. Yeah.
I have another one when Blitmaps were going crazy. I think maybe the floor was around 6 or something, and somebody undercut it, and I got one for 4, and it was like kind of right before things started going parabolic in August or whatever, and I was able to sell it for 17.5 ETH, like very shortly thereafter. That was a pretty great one.
Thinking about it, I did sell, I think it was a mutant garden cedar. So I minted, I think, a few of them at 0.4. And then again, when things were going crazy, I sold one for around 20 ETH.
I never liked those, but I was disappointed that I missed them when the prices were going crazy.
Yeah.
I like the concept, but the actual art itself never appealed to me.
Yeah, I would say I'm much the same.
Do we want to think about stalled communities or best flips a little bit longer?
No, I think we've answered that.
Okay. What is a best alternative? Is this the same person?
This is 3 people who had variations on the same question.
Okay.
Maybe just read the first one.
Yeah. I'll read the first one, and then while you talk, I'll maybe glance over the second and third versions. What is a best alternative for project founders to build a great allow list without Discord vibing / grinding?
Yes, we had a few people.
The 2 questions are just the same basic thing.
Basically the same thing.
You're going to be a lot better at answering this, because like once whitelist started becoming a thing, I just tapped out. I've read on Twitter that people are super sick of it and all that.
Yeah.
But I never did any of the Discord crazy grinding that people got into for it. And I never released a project like yours that would have given me insight from that perspective. So go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I never did the grinding. Like, I was basically 1 foot out the door when it was already becoming mainstream, 1 foot out the door from flipping at least. Basically, projects discovered that, gas was crazy. People hated gas wars. How can we avoid that? Oh, we'll just whitelist a bunch of people, and they can mint, and we'll give them like a 24-hour window. So whenever gas is low, without having to compete with one another. And then what ended up happening was, and that still is a pretty good solution for projects where there's insane demand and a limited supply. The problem was that every project decided, hey, let's do that. And for a while, people found these whitelist, these mint list spots valuable. And so people were climbing over one another to get on them, and then they'd get on them and they'd mint, because every project that minted out would go up in value, and it was great. But then the market turned a little bit, and it started being the case where not every project minted out and started flying on secondary. So people would still, try and get these spots. And at the same time, projects were giving them out more and more freely. And then it ended up in this situation where there was 5,000 people on the list to mint, but then everyone was like waiting and seeing, and like, oh, I'll only mint if it looks like it's going to sell out. Then otherwise, I don't want to be the first one to mint. I don't want to be the first 100, because then if only 200 people mint out of 10K, that's a bad investment. So it ended up being in this space where the mint list spots were not that valuable. And then we sort of came full circle again when I guess demand picked up, especially in January, and projects started getting a ton more hype. And then it became like everyone wanted to get on these mint list spots. And that's sort of kind of where we are now, still for hyped projects. And people started we became full circle even more, where projects said, hey, let's incentivize people on the mint list to mint by making it slightly cheaper than the public sale. So there's that, which brings us back to the whole FOMO ramp bonding curve thing that began this whole thing off with Hashmask last year, which people ended up hating. But I think it's a pretty nice middle ground to give people on the mint list a slight discount and incentive to mint, perhaps. Anyway, the ways people got onto the mint list got more and more elaborate and difficult over time. It used to be
I see good memes on Twitter, like the one where it's like a custom Mario level where it's like the things are spinning.
Fire.
Yeah. People going like, this is me trying to get on the
yeah. Basically, projects were like, all right, we don't want to give it to just anybody because then bots and flippers will get it. We want to give it to people who show that they're generally interested. And so it was like, well, how about we give it to the people who are most active in the Discord? You can very quickly see based on the amount of messages people have posted. And it's great to do that if it's like a retroactive thing. You've had the Discord open for 2 months. You reward the people who've been organically active. But when you say, all right, we're going to give a mint list to anyone who grinds to level 6, which requires, 500 messages, then people are just sitting there spamming GM, hello, etc., fake conversations all day. No one's having fun. And then they were like, well, how about we incentivize, make it so that if people invite other people to the Discord, then because we can track how many people everyone invites, all right, if you invite 5 people, you're guaranteed a spot. And then it became, if you invite 5 people, you go into a raffle to win a spot. And it was like, all right, we'll inflate our Discord numbers, but then people started botting that. And it's just, no one really loves it. And it ends up not really working out well for the projects either, because they get a bunch of people who are on the mint list who are just there to grind these mint list spots and then wait and see. So in terms of, all right, to answer the question, what are the best alternatives to build a great allow list without Discord vibing and grinding? The first thing I would say is consider whether you even need a mint list in the first place. If you have that much, only really consider it once you have, I think, quite a bit of demand. Then start figuring out how to give out these spots and realize that what you have is something of value. So again, retroactively reward people who found your project early, who were in your Discord, who were good community members. And it takes a bit of time and effort. It's not just anyone who grinds to level 5. Maybe you have to have a team member whose pretty much full job it is to look out for people who are helpful, or maybe you deputize some community managers and get them to find people who have been helpful. And then you can do things like partner and collaborate with other NFT projects and exchange. If they're coming up with a launch soon and your community wants to be part of their project and their community wants to be part of yours, you can exchange some spots and stuff like that. But honestly,
I was thinking about the concept. I remember when Botto launched, and they gave the tokens freely to people who had been part of certain projects. And I thought, specifically with that project and it being an art project, them giving it to owners of Artblocks was a smart way to make sure the people in your project are people that are already in the space and have shown an interest in something that is similar to what you have. So, excuse me again. What about the concept of, allowing minters from projects whose communities are specifically interested in, the same area that you are trying to build in? That seems like sort of a smart idea. I mean, again,
yes, some projects
you need
do
the
that.
demand, still need the demand. But if you have the demand and you're trying to figure out who do we let in, and theoretically, hopefully, how do we make sure it's not just cynical flippers just in it for the money? You go, well, who is in the projects that have the community that are doing similar things to what I want to do?
Yeah, and that's basically what more projects are doing, and the good ones do it in a manner where so let's say you're launching a PFP project, you go, all right, we're going to go partner with Cool Cats and give 250 spots for the Cool Cats community, give out to their community. We'll go partner with the Littles, with the Bored Ape Yacht Club, with all these communities and give out like 1 to 300 spots to each community.
What's the BitBoy one that he was saying was one of his top 5? we give some to that community.
Yeah, I can't even remember. Yeah, so it works well if the communities you partner with basically share a vision and align with yours well. What doesn't work well is when you're just giving out 100, 200 spots to anyone that will take them.
Yeah.
So I think the projects that work well are the ones where like they take time to partner with projects who have communities that they would generally like their members to be part of it. And then, you're always going to get some amount of people from every community who are flippers, but flippers are not evil. And I think projects having some quantity of flippers is helpful to, spur secondary market activity. And it's healthy to have some percentage of flippers. You just don't want the majority.
You can't have it all because then you don't have a community.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know what the ratio is, but yeah.
It is worth kind of going back to the very beginning of the answer, though, I think, where you're just going, like, the reason we ever started doing any of this, right, was to avoid gas wars. So you have to go, is there enough demand that there would even be one anyway? If there's not, you probably don't need one. And, is there another way to avoid the gas war? I mean, for instance, the way you launched Zen Academy's token. Now, again, that's an ERC 1155, and it's different in terms of the supply and all of that. But that is another way that you don't need to make a allow list or a whitelist necessarily, but you can still avoid the gas war, which those were designed to circumvent. So, even with a profile picture project, like, again, we talked about this earlier, but like the 10K number is sort of arbitrary. And if you have the randomization actually happening during the minting process rather than, ahead of time and then picking which of those randomly assigned ones you get, you can probably just have a more open minting style that lasts whatever amount of time and then allow the actual demand to drive how much supply there is. And then also having, that happen means that there isn't going to be this insane rush that causes the gas war that people want to avoid, which means you would have needed the allow list. So you can just kind of have a more casual mint with maybe possibly not a set in stone ahead of time cap on the supply. And I feel like that's not really something we ever see as a profile picture project where they go, we don't know what the supply is going to be. We're going to leave it open for 3 days. And, there
I would
might
love
be
to see more of that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing, I think.
Yeah. And you can still do it with like ERC 1155s. You can just say, we're going to sell mint passes for a week.
Right.
And then each mint pass at the end of a week, you just redeem it for a PFP. And maybe we end up with 220 people. And maybe we end up with 12,000, sort of depending on how demand goes. And, people say, well, there's always the risk that not too many mint. But the project does not necessarily have to end there. If the success of your project is predicated on selling out 10K, you're in some senses setting yourself up for failure. And I think you can many collections can succeed selling out like 500, and then having if that's 500 people who are really passionate about the project and the community and the art and stuff, you can always release a second collection, in a few weeks, in a few months of just open it up again, and then whoever wants to join can join. And
there's a lot of possibilities if you are really building and you're really building something interesting. The initial mint is just the initial mint. And it's like, if you think about what almost any really successful project is now versus what it looked like on day 0 or day 1, there's a big difference there in a successful project. Okay. Right. Next question comes. What?
It's me, right?
Okay, yeah, you're right. I read the first one and then.
Hammer says, what other partnerships do you foresee? Building off the Cool Cats with Puma, Adidas with Bored Ape Yacht Club. You can kind of maybe add in Nike and Artifact, but let's say, anyway, curious about potential partnerships for Doodles. This is not something I've thought a lot about. Have you thought about what other partnerships or companies might enter the space?
I sort of have. Yeah. I mean, I've talked a little bit on the podcast before previously that professional sports teams, the way that they have very actively engaged community already that's built around, this sort of, it's like a thing that's not static, but you also have a history that you can tap into, and it's kind of dynamic and all that. There's just a ton of stuff that can be done with them. I don't think necessarily that they will be going the route of partnering with existing profile picture projects so much, but I could definitely see there's a lot of potential there for them to either do their own NFTs or, yes, collaborate with various NFT projects. I don't think Doodles necessarily is a specific good example of that. But I feel like in general, sports teams are going to be doing a lot with NFTs, and possibly some projects that are. I would think they'd have to be ones that have huge supply. Would be good examples of ones for them to partner with. Also, like Artblocks, for instance, but also places like Super Rare and Foundation, those sorts of things. I think there's going to be just a lot more partnerships of them with traditional art, where the traditional art world capitulates to some degree and acknowledges, yeah, this is art. Yeah, this is a valid way to own it, and blah blah blah. And there's just going to be nice, I think, in the future, more examples of NFT native art getting shown and respected in more traditional art spaces.
Did you happen to see the giant announcement Snowfro made earlier today?
No.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically talking a lot about this, how he's spent the last like 3 weeks every other day in a new city talking with traditional art houses, galleries, artists, and stuff about, and again, just how excited they are. He had his own showing. I think it was in New York.
I saw that, but I did not see this particular announcement you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's just like he was just talking about how cool it is that they're coming around. Like they are starting to see how there are some people from the traditional art world who are getting very excited and buying NFTs, and similarly, the people who, including himself, are buying traditional art as well, because it goes both ways, and sort of like the worlds are merging. And obviously, the traditional non-NFT art space is much larger than the NFT art space right now, but that disparity is
probably going to shrink. Yeah. Boy, this is on topic, I think, but that setup that they did in Miami, it just looked amazing. I mean, I didn't go to it. But all the videos and stills I saw of the way that they were showing that art looked fantastic, and just so much better than you normally see. So as the ability to take this art that's on the blockchain that we're mostly just seeing on our phones and our computers, and to be able to scale it up and keep it classy, rather than just going, here's a Samsung TV, you can see the cord running. It's not the same dimensions as the piece of art, but we're just going to throw it up on there anyway. Like, once we're past that and doing more of this stuff, I think it's going to be impossible for people that appreciate traditional art not to appreciate some of this stuff. And that's so ripe for collaborations that benefit both parties, which is ultimately, I think, what you need out of a collaboration or a partnership.
Yeah. It's so crazy to think that Artblocks has only existed for like 14 months, 15 months. And it's anyway.
I kind of wish I bought one of those squiggles the other day. We're getting off topic.
The day zero ones? Or the day one?
I mean, I have so much Artblocks, and a much more finite amount of money. So it seemed like, do I really need to spend 7.5 ETH on more Artblocks? But now I kind of wish I did.
Yeah.
You know what else? I could see like just snack brands partnering with it. Go, look, this is our Bored Ape pretzels or some shit, and then anybody who has one can get a free bag of it or whatever. I don't know. Like I could see some sort of simple like mascot type situation happening in that, like, where it's just kind of easy to go, here's this product, and now we're just slapping this cartoon on it for for branding purposes, I could see that sort of thing being a space where, NFT communities try to get more mainstream and whatever from that, while these, food companies try to make themselves a little bit hipper and have a new avenue for advertising. I could see something that really works well for both communities. That's kind of simple in that respect too.
Yeah, yeah. We really, for the most part, we've seen even the examples given here. It's like merch. It's Puma. It's Adidas, Nike entering it. A couple others I can't remember off the top of my head, but we haven't seen too much else. I think, every industry we're going to find them into the NFT space, whether it's their own NFTs, whether it's partnering with existing collections.
Yeah, and this is a thing that's been hypothesized and teased in various stuff, but like we will certainly be seeing TV shows and movies at some point with intellectual property that comes from NFT projects. That's only a matter of time, and that'll just be another example when eventually Netflix goes, yeah, we want to buy the rights to this movie or whatever. I think that's going to just have to happen. Probably before the end of the year, we'll see something
like
not necessarily the finished product, but the deal.
Right? Yeah. All right.
Our next question comes from Jewel Jan 1311, Jewel John, something like that. They say, you think Artblocks is coming to Coinbase? It would be important for generative art. Best from Hamburg. Hamburg, is that close to you?
It's in the same country. It's more northern Germany. Well, I don't know. You're an ignorant, dumb American.
Oh my God. So I quickly Googled Artblocks Coinbase ahead of time to see if they had made an announcement. I couldn't find exactly them saying, hey, they're going to be one of our launch partners or whatever, but they did do some market updates that they call Around the Block. And in issue number 18 of that, they specifically did talk about Artblocks for a bit. They show some ringers, they show some videnzas, and also just in general, like their Artblocks is too big of a part of NFTs for me to conceive of Coinbase not having them when they've teased so many different projects as being a part of them. So I definitely think that they'll be buying tradable just in general on Coinbase.
I tend to agree. And I have a vague memory of when Coinbase first announced their marketplace. I remember there was like an image of a ghost and a couple other collections. And I think there was a squiggle, but maybe my brain is just making things up.
I can remember the ghost. I think maybe I can remember like Apes and Cool Cats for sure too, maybe. But I don't necessarily remember Artblocks. But yeah, I would be stunned if they didn't include Artblocks. That would be wild to me.
Yeah. It would be important for generative art. It would be, I think. Yeah.
Somewhat.
Yeah. Crypto NFT mom 59 minutes replying to why are all doxed people always why'd you put this in? Why are all doxed people so good looking?
I thought it would be fun to teach our listeners about sampling bias.
Okay, go on. Teach our listeners about sampling bias.
Well, so you have, this group of, let's say, 1,000 people, right? And over here you have, the most unattractive of the 1,000. Over here you have the most attractive of that 1,000. And now they all have the option to dox. You're going to have a lot more. I can't remember which end of the spectrum was attractive versus the unattractive, but you're going to have a lot more people on the attractive end of the spectrum voluntarily showing who they are in real life, doxing themselves, so to speak. And that's what's called a sampling bias. And that, I believe, is why all doxed people are so good looking. That's it.
Next question.
Yeah. But hold on a second. There is a sense that this...
I thought you were going to point out some ugly...
No, I was not. But sampling bias is sort of an important thing that's worth, thinking about and knowing about in general, and also in the NFT space. I mean, if you go, oh, I see all these people on Twitter that are talking about how much they think this project's floor is going to go up or some shit. You have a sampling bias there of people that are fucking already own a bunch of that stuff. So you have to think about, what are people's incentives for doing and saying what they are versus, people that are choosing not to do that same thing. And it's going to come back to a sampling bias a lot of times. That's it. I didn't know it was going to be so controversial to include the question, but
it's not controversial. It was just funny. I was curious.
It was a lot. It was certainly a lot less about NFTs than all the rest of the questions.
Yeah. No, there we go. Sampling bias. You're up next.
Now I want to Google sampling bias to make sure that it's the right bias that I'm thinking of. I'm quite sure it is. But
I think it is. It is.
Yeah, okay.
It's not survivorship bias.
Nailed it. The last question, spoiler alert, comes from Mark Roca 225. They say, "What's the advantage of on-chain NFTs in the long run, and what do you think about the development of on-chain NFTs in the future?"
The advantage of on-chain one of the advantages of on-chain NFTs basically is that they're not dependent on anything external to the Ethereum blockchain, basically. So
one dependency, Ethereum. If Ethereum keeps going, so too does the NFT.
Yep. A lot of NFTs, like Bored Apes, for instance, the actual NFT itself, the thing that exists on the blockchain, is not the actual image of the NFT. It is a bunch of text, data, and within that data, there is a link to a URL where the NFT, where it points to like an image file of the NFT, of the ape, for instance, and that is hosted,
which people associate with or think of as the NFT, but it's not.
And where that is hosted is important, because if the place that's hosted goes down for whatever reason, effectively your NFT no longer is represented by an image. It's just
the thing that you think of as the NFT is no longer actually connected to it. Yeah. So to me, it's like you kind of have levels of security, and again, it kind of goes back to dependencies. But the most stable NFT is going to be something where all of the data, all the art is just right there on the chain, because the only thing that you need to survive there is the Ethereum blockchain, or whatever blockchain the NFT happens to be on. But mostly we're talking about Ethereum. And then after that, you're looking at something like Arweave or IPFS, which are really robust, decentralized systems for storing data. But again, now still it's decentralized, it's robust, but it could go away at some point for whatever various reason or reasons. So now you have, in order for my NFT to stay the way that I think of it as, I need Ethereum to survive and Arweave or IPFS, and now after that, you go to something that's even worse, like on the OpenSea shared contract forever. Now you need OpenSea servers to stay running, which is something that's even less likely, because honestly, in 70 years, is OpenSea still going to be around? It's not at all certain. We've seen companies become big and go away before, and specifically in the NFT space, there are examples of people who had NFTs. I actually read a good article by, I think Artgnome is the guy. He had some X copies from before X copy was X copy, and it was on some marketplace that neither of us have ever heard of, and all the images were stored there, and that's where the NFTs pointed to. And it's just, now he's got these X copy NFTs that maybe should be worth millions, but are not worth squat.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has to do with what needs to survive for your NFT to still be what you think it is when you're initially getting involved. And the on-chain ones have zero dependencies besides the blockchain itself. Or I guess if you want to be like a douchebag, you could go, the internet and electricity and all that shit.
Yeah.
But
it's probably worth mentioning, like, why doesn't every project just be on-chain then? Like, why would a project rely on an external dependency? And basically, to write anything to the Ethereum blockchain costs money, costs gas, And the more information that you're adding to the blockchain, the more it costs. And image files are quite large, and the data just a lot of information, and so it's extremely expensive to upload.
Prohibitively so.
Prohibitively expensive. Like it would cost tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands, to upload just a single like high quality, 4K resolution image.
Yeah.
And that's why basically every single NFT you see that's on chain is like these pixelated, tiny, low resolution images, because that is affordable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. So there's sort of like hybrid stuff, like Artblocks, for instance. The image is not stored on chain, but the image is also not just basically a link in the NFT to an image offsite. You basically have the code that can basically all the code to reproduce the image is stored on chain. So you don't actually have the image on chain, but you can reproduce the image on chain with only the on chain data plus like JavaScript or whatever.
Yeah. Some of them don't even require JavaScript. It's just like, yeah. But there's various levels of like on-chainness and how dependent, all of that stuff. But all right, let's go to the second part of the question. What do you think about the development of on-chain NFTs in the future? I think we're seeing people innovate and get better at finding ways to store more data on the Ethereum blockchain, or like effectively on the Ethereum blockchain. I'm not technologically.
Slipknots somehow found a way to have the images on chain, even though they're not exactly pixel art.
Yeah.
So they must have done something crafty there.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of crazy technological stuff people are figuring out and innovating that neither of us really understand properly. But
I think there's, when we talk about the value of NFTs and sort of crypto stuff in general, about how these things are like Legos or building blocks, and how it's sort of interoperable. I think when you have this NFT over here, where trying to have them be really to the camera anyway, where the image is stored on chain versus something where you just have a link on chain, the ability for other smart contracts to really interact with the actual image that we're all associating with the NFT is much stronger over on the side where you have on-chain images versus ones where you just have an on-chain link to an offsite stored image. And so I can definitely see in the future somehow where that really on-chain stuff is more able to be plugged into pipelines of code, of smart contracts that are just kind of doing interesting things.
Yeah, no, 100%.
In a way that literally is sort of reflecting it and actually has to do with the specifics of what your on-chain image is. Because, you can sort of do the same thing with the other ones, but you have to like query off-chain to have the specifics of what the image is. And so the ability to actually have, not just what project it is, but what piece from that project have some sort of relevance to these smart contracts that you're interacting with is going to just be much smoother to do with that on-chain stuff.
Yeah. Like one thing you can do is, so often, even though the image is stored off-chain, like again, using Apes as an example, the trait data is stored on-chain. So another smart contract can do is, all right, I know that ape 5629 or whatever, I know it has gold fur, I know it has laser eyes, I know you can know
that sounds like a high-end ape.
I don't know, but you still cannot reproduce exactly what it looks like based just off the on-chain data. But if it is, say, a blit map or a chain runner where it's all stored on chain, you can literally just reproduce the exact copy of that into your smart contract, into your game, into your world, or whatever you're building. And
you can do like derivative stuffs with it. Again, where it's just everything is happening on the chain, and it's only using stuff that's already on the chain in order to do that. And again, that you make a good point by saying it's not just that the NFT for my ape says this is ape 9838, and here's a link to the image. On the chain, we do have the information about the traits and stuff. So again, there's going to be some level of interoperability with these smart contracts and stuff that can work with the specifics of your thing, but it's all slightly abstracted. And in order to translate what does the trait toga mean, you have to again look at these off-chain images to be able to translate that. Whereas again, the on-chain stuff, it's all there. So you see, my blit map, for instance, if they also had traits and one of them was toga, you could not only see that it has toga, but literally see what toga means within the context of this NFT project, because it's just right there on the chain. It means you got a gray pixel here, a gray pixel here, and like a red pixel there, for instance.
Yeah. I'm looking at blip maps now.
Did you see the merch the other day?
No, I did not.
I can link you to it after this, but somebody made some cool looking merch. None of the ones that had any of the compositions that I have, so I'm not as interested, but they look pretty cool.
Yeah. I've been all the teasers that Dom keeps tweeting out about like the Blitnauts running around in this 2.5D gaming world. It's all very exciting and makes me just baffled that the prices are not, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things where I'm sure we've talked about this before, or at least I have, but the idea of supply and demand, traditionally we always think smaller supply means higher prices if you have the same amount of demand. And I guess that actually still holds true here. But when you have a certain amount of supply, that allows it to become more of a community thing, which kind of does the self-reinforcing demand type thing. And it's like, just as for instance, if you have a profile picture project that only has 3 NFTs in it, you're never going to be able to build up demand from that project because there's no sense of community. I guess in theory, if people did only 3 of them, they might end up being very prized, but it's still a different thing. And again, the total value of those 3 would probably not be nearly as big as if he did a 10,000 picture thing. Anyway, that I think is part of the reason possibly that blit maps have not been, and Gutter Cat Gang too, where people go, hey, these projects are super legit. And again, in theory, they have much smaller supplies than these other things. So why are they not big? And I think it's possibly because the size of the projects in terms of the number of NFTs is not big enough to get that real self-sustaining marketing system on Twitter and Discord or whatever of just people having them as their profile pictures.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think that's a huge part of why it just hasn't taken off quite as much as some of these other collections. But I think as they add to the universe and build, I think the rivals are coming soon, or the enemies are, and if those are new NFTs and if the collection size is larger and it's a Dom project and people get excited for it, then maybe, anyway.
There was talk of us playing a chess game, a very quick chess game on this. Are you still interested in that?
I was hoping
to play a game.
I was hoping to play a few games so I was less rusty.
Okay, maybe I'll beat you next time. No,
we can play now. You can beat me for the very first time ever.
Yeah, what are the odds of that, right? All right, I'm going to give
Pretty good.
We'll do 1 minute with no increment, okay? So it'll be over really quick. People that don't care about chess don't have to get subjected to a whole long thing. I'm going to send you the link. This is nerve-wracking.
It's way more nerve-wracking. We've played 200 games of chess. You've never beaten me.
I know.
And this is...
Boy, I had a couple where I really should have, though. Now, are you going to share your screen because you're more technologically savvy than me?
Yeah, sure. And you've been playing chess every day, 10 games a day for like the last year. And
but my rating is still nowhere near what your rating is. So let's not try and pull out an excuse already.
All right, let's see. Share screen. Chrome tab. All right, window. That one. This is terrifying.
I know. By the way, I never play this fast either, so it actually is not
Should
good
be like
for me.
1 + 3 or something to give us a little more.
No. We just
All
got to
right,
do
I'm
this.
clicking join game.
Oh, of course you got the white pieces.
All right, good luck. This is some great podcasting. We're both silent.
Oh God.
Yeah, this is really, really quick.
Oh fuck.
I just got his queen. And now I just got his knight.
Oh God damn. All right, I give up. I give up. Fuck. Whew. Okay, that was
right.
interesting and really,
And it only
really
took less than a minute.
really, really unenjoyable for the people that are not doing the video podcast. Only
I don't know. Maybe when I took your queen, it was a little bit like
yeah. Anyway, that was us playing a quick game of chess. Fuck. It's so full. It's so fast.
I like how at the bottom you can see the score 99.5 to 2.5.
So actually, you can see that I did get a win there. Roy's lying.
Oh, that was not a real win. That was
Look, you timed out.
Yeah, this is the game that you won.
Yeah, that was a strong response there.
Yeah.
You were like E5. I don't know what to do. I give up.
Yeah.
What a great ending to the podcast this has been, though.
I think so. I mean, it was a great ending.
Fuck.
All right, this has been Chess.
Two Bored Apes talking NFTs
and Kevin,
DeFi, and some random stuff.
I think we're actually doing the Kevin project as well. By the way,
I don't know what that means.
Doing
the Kevin project. I mean, I know that Kevin is the famous Pixelmon.
Right, yeah. I was I jokingly tweeted it out yesterday. Should I just
change the screen back to just the two of us, would you?
How do I do this? I jokingly tweeted out yesterday, should I just spend 7 ETH on and buy a Kevin or someone talk? I was never actually going to do it, but then like I was like, hey, maybe I'll just do like an MS Paint collection and then we'll sell them and send all the money to Ukraine, or to support Ukraine. And then even then it was like kind of a joke. And I wasn't really serious. And then Zagabond, the founder of Azuki, just DMs me and he's like, all right, let's do it. And I'm like, all right, well, you got the devs, you got the, you can create it. And then earlier today, I crowdsourced and just tweeted out, hey, maybe this is happening. Send in your best MS Paint versions because I didn't have the time to sit down and create a bunch. And now I've got like 30 Kevins that are all memes that people have created. And we might get it out in the next day or so and send some money to Ukraine. Yeah. Right. And get that airdrop. That's so crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is crazy. And
Justin
even
Sun.
crazier. Oh my God. Justin Sun. What a fucking douchebag.
Hey, Ukraine.
We wanted to give a negative shout out to Justin Sun for being so out of touch and stupid with comments the other day.
He gets our first official boo.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if that's true. Oh, I was.
What's that word?
Funny. I was. What?
That word game that we play.
Oh, what am I thinking? I was literally the thing that I just got so excited about was I wanted to talk to you about how excited I am to see the new Batman movie, which I don't know that we need to be on the podcast for that. You want to play What Am I Thinking?
Yeah.
Okay,
I wanted to get sidetracked about how excited I was to see Spider-Man, and then Rachel booked us into one where they speak German. But let's play What Am I Thinking?
All right, let me think of a word here.
Look around your room.
No, I'm not going to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got one.
I've got something that's on my desk.
3, 2, 1. Vigilante. Vigilante and golf ball. Vigilante and golf ball. Okay.
All right.
3, 2, 1. Punisher. Batman and Punisher. We're getting pretty close already. Batman.
Yeah, but we're maybe too close already.
Right. Who is between Batman and the Punisher? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Daredevil. Yes. Yes! Oh my god, that's great! I love Daredevil. I love
good.
Batman. I love Punisher.
Yeah.
This is a great ending for me. I just
my
wish I
first
won that chess
instinct
game.
My first instinct was the Joker, but
Oh, okay.
Daredevil.
I was trying to think of
seemed
somebody
little
with
more
guns for a little bit.
Mm.
Anyway, we don't need to get into our thought process all that much. This
If
is
we were doing a POAP, that would be the code, but we're not.
yeah, we're not doing
So-
it. Click on the links in the show notes. Subscribe. What do you have? I'm trying to end the episode, right?
Vitor had a pretty cool idea about, I don't know if you saw it, how so much of the like the only Discord community we really have for Two Bored Apes is in the Zen Academy Discord. But you need a Zen Academy token to
participate,
take part in the discussion. So he had the idea of like airdropping on Polygon something to listeners who want to be part of it. Yeah. Keep an eye out for that.
We're
probably going to do it. Yeah. We just need to figure out the logistics.
We're definitely going to do it. We're
definitely going to do it.
I mean, why wouldn't we do it?
Assuming that Collabland works with Polygon assets. Because if it doesn't, we're probably not going to airdrop on Ethereum mainnet because that's
right.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point, but I think it does. I mean, Zedrun must have. Well, I don't want to say must, but I think that they do.
We'll figure it out.
Confirmed roles or whatever in their Discord.
Yeah.
I bet you we don't even need Collabland in theory, right? Just like make some code.
Make some code?
Like whatever Collabland is doing to confirm that you have these things in your wallet on the F mainnet, some programmer could also do with Polygon.
Absolutely.
Right.
Some programmer could
you know
do
the people, you've got the money, so you can just hire them. And Roy's going to get this done for our listeners. Even if Collabland doesn't support Polygon, this is an on-chain promise from Roy.
On-chain promise?
On air, but maybe I'll mint an NFT to make it on-chain.
All right.
I'm going to try to end the episode again. This has been episode 31.
32, Jamie.
32. Thanks for listening, etc. Bye.
Bye.
Two Bored Apes talking NFTs, DeFi, and some random stuff. Two Bored Apes talking NFTs.